So what I'm going to very quickly do is welcome you to a session about budgeting and forecasting that we're doing with a partner of ours called Centage. Microsoft Dynamics GP does obviously have some budgeting within it, but a number of clients have more specific requirements, more complex requirements, and those clients often use third-party tools. And Centage are one of our partners, and our objective today is just to run through the product, give you guys an overview of what it can do, give you some options in terms of moving the product forward in the future. Could I just ask you to click over to the next slide for me, Michael? I'm joined by Anthony and Michael from Centage. They're going to be doing much of the talking. You'll be glad to hear. Just from a housekeeping perspective, what I've done is all the attendees are muted. You'll be able to hear Michael and Anthony, and myself. But should you have any questions, on the panel on the GoToMeeting on the right, there's a questions section. If you pop your question in there, then what I could do is I could actually let those guys know that you have a question and can ask on your behalf, rather than open it up to a melee of people all talking at once. So that's introduction to ourselves, quick bit of housekeeping. I'll be quiet now and let the guys take us through the product. Thanks, Michael.
No problem. Thank you very much, Matt. Appreciate it, and pleasure to speak with your audience today. We're very excited about our partnership with Advantage, and you guys do fantastic work. So, we're happy to keep up that standard, obviously, and hopefully everybody enjoys what they see here today. So we're going to do most of our time in the product itself, but we do want to touch off with a couple quick slides with the first and most important question, which is, what is Budget Maestro? So what are we here to talk about and discuss today? Well, Budget Maestro is part of our Maestro suite, and the suite is made up of 3 distinct products, of which Budget Maestro itself is the flagship. And Budget Maestro is our core tool. It's for budgeting, forecasting, scenario planning, capital assets management, HR planning, and of course reporting. We handle consolidations in the tool, multi-currency, and driver-based planning. But what we're famous for, we don't pretend to be the only budgeting and forecasting tool on the planet. In fact, most of you are probably using Excel, and some of you may even have had experience in the past with other tools like Forecaster or Active Planner. We're a very different paradigm in terms of the way that we approach the budget and forecast and the automation that we deliver. And we have a proprietary piece to our tool that handles what we call future journal entries, and that's the automated debits and credits associated with future budgeted and forecasted transactions. Sounds like a lot of word speak right now, but we'll make sure to demonstrate that in about 5 minutes to make sure it's clear how we handle balance sheet and cash flow and why it's a little bit different than other solutions, including Excel. Link Maestro is our ETL tool, extract, transform, and load. And what that does is it simply grabs the data to and from all of the dynamic CRPs, from GP to NAV, SL, and AX. We also can do that into a number of other solutions on the planet. So please do reach out to Advantage about that. But we won't be demonstrating Link today. It's simply the mechanism behind the scenes for seamless integration. If you're using Management Reporter today, exactly the same type of system. There's no clumsy data warehouse that we have to worry about. It's direct integration to grab data from GP, NAV, AX, SL. And Analytics Maestro we will touch on today very briefly at the end, and that's our add-on business intelligence, BI, and dashboard reporting tool. It sits in Excel with a graphical interface of Excel and a PowerPoint tie-in, but it's not Excel reporting. So this is the piece where if there is some frustration with a Management Reporter or something like that, you can leverage this tool. But if you love Management Reporter and like what you're doing with it, or the FRX reporting tool if you're on an older version of Microsoft ERPs, not a problem. You can dump the data from your budget and forecast and Budget Maestro right back into GP, NAV, ALS, and AX, excuse me, SL and AX, I got them together, and right back to the budget card and leverage those reports that you've already built. We talked about this briefly. This is our integration piece, and it lists down the left-hand side of the ones that we have the pre-built integration to. Down the right-hand side are some that we've built ad hoc integrations for, and there's a slight difference between the two. We should just tell you that the integration for the left-hand side there, the GP, NAV, SLAX, etc., is pre-built, and it takes about 10 minutes to set up. Budget Maestro's core benefits. So why are you here? Why would you be interested in getting out of Excel-based process? We're going to save you time and shorten the budget cycle, improve accuracy, no more broken links, macros, lookups, formula errors, increased accountability, enabling collaboration. So no more tracking down folks. Did you start your budget template? Did you fill it out correctly? Did we get Jimmy or Susan's back to us? You'll be able to have visibility into that cycle. Enhanced responsiveness, instant what-ifs, and pro forma financials. Anytime you spend less time in spreadsheets and more time analyzing the budget, you can deliver more value for your organization. And of course, we have some additional flexibility. We know that you may look at your numbers differently in operations than you would in finance, than you would at the board level or bank level, for example, so we can create different financials for each group. And of course, better security and continuity. Usually at many organizations, there's one Excel guru or master, and God forbid they take a new job or something happens and they have to leave the company. Then it's very difficult for others to understand how that budget and forecast model was programmed and to make sense of it moving forward. Budget Maestro, we certainly do away with that issue, and the onboarding for teaching somebody our version of the budget model is much faster than you would teaching somebody your own Excel-based programmed budget model. No competition. We talked about ERP budget modules, and Matt right off the bat said there is some budget capacity to GP. Of course there is. There's a budget card in GP that, and if that's doing it for you, then our tool probably won't deliver enough value. But a lot of customers we speak to, and the reason we're in this space particularly, and we partner with Microsoft, is because there simply isn't enough modeling capabilities, not enough flexibility in the ERP. It's usually about the budget card, and if you want to port over one version of the budget and do some comparisons, that's pretty much what you can do in GP. And it doesn't offer a lot of value, certainly not at our level of detail, for balance sheet budgeting and cash flow forecasting. So that's where we kind of fill in the gaps of what GP has to offer in the budget scenario. Now again, Forecaster you may be familiar with. Last time that software was updated, there wasn't an iPhone yet. And the Active Planner tool, which has just been rebranded, is very similar. Excel-driven interface, mostly a wizard tool, as opposed to a real business intelligence or budgeting platform. So let's stop blabbing and show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to port over to a new screen here. And what we're looking at is now Budget Maestro home screen. And Budget Maestro is built, let me slide over this over here, yep. Budget Maestro is built with a Windows 8 tile-like interface. It's a little bit friendlier, I would say, than the Windows 8 tiles, but this is the approach. All these categories can be renamed. There's room for additional categories over here, and of course you can customize this. I'll click on this customize button. These aren't the only icons available to you. Okay, these are the most common work by areas or wizards in the tool, and you can already get to all of these areas via our mega menu approach. We reduced greatly the number of clicks that it takes to get to any of these different areas of the tool. The idea is simply we have a tree structure over here on the left, and this is going to model, any of you who are familiar with an FRX or a management reporter style tree will be very comfortable using this. So the idea is if I'm highlighted on administration and I go to personnel, I'll see all the personnel records associated with administration. If I go click on my manufacturing cost center 2 and I go to my capital assets section, I'll get all the machinery, for example, that would be in manufacturing cost center 2. This isn't the only type of tree structure available to you. So we understand that in GP, for example, or any other tool, you'll have some additional segmentation and dimensionality. Totally fine. For example, if you have a code for vendor, if that's important to you, and you have vendor D, and I go over to operating expenses, I'll see all operating expenses tied to vendor D. It's that simple, okay, to keep yourself organized. Now, you can even work at the account level across all departments. You can work across, all departments at a certain location. It doesn't matter. There's an unlimited number of different views, and we mirror all your segmentation in GP or in your other Dynamics ERPs to make sure you can slice and dice it at any level as you see fit, and even leverage those tree roll-ups are flexible and can be drag and drop, so that way if you need to create a new view on the fly, that's entirely possible. Even a manager's view, where if you want to grab what's everything within the CFO's purview in terms of personnel expenses. Okay, and that makes it easier sometimes for organizational planning and capacity planning. One note before I jump into operating expenses and everything else here today, and really show you the meat of the tool. Budget Maestro is industry agnostic. We could care less whether you are a nonprofit or a major Fortune 500 corporation. It doesn't matter to us, and we'll show you that a little bit of that as we go along. Most of the examples that we have in today's demo are examples for a for-profit company, but we have, it's simply a semantics number for us, matter for us. Units times a rate, for example, doesn't matter to us if a unit is a head count, a person, a chair. Grants and funds would be in the revenue section instead of this saying sales, for example. But it's all about money in, money out. So please forgive us if there are any nonprofits on the line. We do have a for-profit version of today's presentation, but the only difference for you in the tool is really semantics, and we'll be happy to do a custom demonstration if you want to reach out to ABS and schedule something if you're having trouble following along with any of the examples that we have here today. Let me click on OpEx here. And the first thing that you'll notice is that we have two different modes of the tool, advanced and simple. I'm going to start in the simple mode. This is the exact same 12 records that we had over on the other screen. The reason I want to start in simple mode is to give you an idea of the user experience for non-finance folks. So Budget Maestro is a tool that obviously would be delivering a lot of value to the finance team, but we'd be remiss not to mention how much of a difference it can make for non-finance users, for example, department heads. Think about what you do for them today. Typically, you send them an Excel spreadsheet or an Excel template. And what does that template have on it? It usually has the budget line items that you want them to budget for the next upcoming budget year. Usually, you're going to want them to keep track of some type of fiscal year total, or monthly total. Okay, and we have those dynamically updating here. And the third piece that's missing, and that takes a lot of labor in the process usually, is you want to give them some type of baseline. So if I'm looking at travel expenses, a common question that the person, department head A, is going to ask you is, well, what did I do last year for travel? You want to give them access to look at that information. So Budget Maestro solves that problem entirely. You don't have to worry about a template process anymore. And let me show you what I mean. If you give the person security access, and here I did give myself access, I'm going to grab my actuals from 2014, and I'm going to compare that to my budget up here. So what I'm looking at is these are the totals for that line item, okay, mirrored one-to-one down here so I can clearly see it and make the comparison. These are the actual numbers from the previous year, from 2014. And if there was a variance, here the variance is 0, so it's just flat line here down at the bottom. I can see that in real time. Now, imagine I have them one-to-one here, and I decide I do want to mark this up a little bit for inflation. I can do an advanced copy, and I can budget off actuals here by marking it up by a flat amount, or in this case, I'm going to mark it up by 10%, see what I can get away with. Maybe I can take an extra trip this year. And I can use either last year's existing trend, if there was any seasonality to it, or I can spread it evenly across the year, or any other number of spread methods available. Okay? I'm going to do evenly over the course of 12 months just to make it easy, and we're increasing this by 12% or by 10%. Excuse me. I go ahead and click on that. I'm looking at my travel expenses, and my travel expenses now. I go down to my variance report. I should see, yes, I do, a 10% variance. We see how that changed up here. It's 825 now instead of the 750. It's that easy to budget off actuals in Budget Maestro, okay? So the template process that you guys are copying and pasting data, exporting from GP, sorting it out, okay, this is the administration department, these are the line items I want that person to budget for, you're copying and pasting all those rows and data, then you're giving them, copying and pasting the actuals from the previous year, and you're sending out the template. I just showed you how we get rid of that in 2 seconds. Now the other thing you might want to ask is, well, sometimes we don't want them to budget off actuals. Sometimes they just go ahead and key in numbers based on different assumptions, especially on the revenue side. That's totally fine. Simple in Budget Maestro. Green means go. If it's greened out, that means the person can come in and just key over this. 55, 60, 60, 60, 60. And as I change it, the numbers change at the top. So here we're 5646. If I make this 155, it's 5746. Excuse me. Okay. Let me show you the last piece to this non-finance user experience, and that would be submitting the budget. So right now I'm looking at it from the finance perspective, so I can see multiple departments. If I was simply the department head, I would only see my own department here. and I'd be able to submit my budget. In this case, I'm looking at from the finance user's perspective, who's responsible for collecting all those budget templates and input. And instead of wondering whether somebody has started or finished, I can call them on it now. I have a lot more visibility into the process, so I can see that our Los Angeles unit here has not started yet, and they're lazy. So I got to kick them in the butt a little bit and send them a message. Or in this case, they're in progress working on it, or that I've accepted and promoted this version to the active budget version. So there's a number of different categories here for workflow in the tool, and we can certainly show you this in a one-on-one demonstration if you have some more concerns about that. But I did want to show you, kind of the end product there. So let's go to advanced mode. These are, again, the exact same 12 line items we talked about before, but a little bit different type of detail. So finance team is mostly concerned then with some kind of higher level thinking about these items sometimes. And the first thing I want to do is show you that we can add some additional notations. There's up to 4 of these descriptions fields over here, and you can lock these down so only certain users have access to them, etc. You can include these description fields on reports. If there's any additional reporting notation that you want, you can simply add a new note over here. It's user stamp, date stamp, time stamped. You could copy War and Peace in here if you wanted to, and you could also link to supporting documentation, a receipt or an order or something like that if it's important to do so. Another thing that we want to show you here is how do you actually make a budgetary decision in the tool. If we're not budgeting off of actuals, and if we're not just budgeting, entering in numbers, what are some other ways we can budget? I'm going to grab this. Let's do mailing again over here, and we'll see that mailing. Remember, we had in the manual mode over there, green means go. So even on this screen where I see green, I can simply type over it and enter a new number. The next way we can do it, let's step up the complexity a tiny bit, and we'll do simple automatic calculation, where we take a number, in this case $600, and I'm spreading it either as a monthly amount, evenly, quarterly beginning or end, fiscal year end, seasonal spread based on what we did last year. In this case, I'm going to do evenly over 12 months starting immediately to make it simple. Okay? And Budget Maestro then spreads it accordingly. The third way we can do something is, what about those big ugly formulas I have, right? And those are the ones that take you the most time to program and that are broken. Let me give you a more complicated example than you may have, too many of, just so that way we can show you the real value of how we do it and why it's so different. Again, I told you you'll never see a formula bar in Budget Maestro. No macros, no lookups, none of that kind of thing. And let me show you an example that we did very recently for a fuel cost of deliveries. This was a bakery. They did some local delivery, had a fleet of 2 or 3 trucks, and they did it based on contracted miles for delivery to local outlets, and they wanted to be able to test what would happen based on a couple different fluctuating numbers. So let's take a look here. Expenses. I had my expense line item for fuel cost for deliveries, and they had drivers, non-financial statistics that drive the budget assumptions. And they wanted these on their spreadsheet, in their Excel model. They had these 3 numbers on different spreadsheets, and this was all part of their formula. The number of miles they'd contracted to drive, so we have 10,000 miles, average miles per gallon of the fleet of vehicles, okay, and the average fuel cost per gallon. And the formula here was essentially taking 10,000 miles, dividing it by 25 miles per gallon to get the total number of gallons or liters of gas, and to then multiply that by the dollar amount, by the cost, okay, of that unit. This is how we do that in Budget Maestro, and you can go over after financial numbers and non-financial statistics. But instead of just doing a simple manual and typing it in, or doing it based on my prior year's actuals, as we showed you before, we could do a simple auto where we just take a number and spread it, or in this case, we did a based upon. And a based upon allows me to go after those additional those numbers. But as you see here, we're not doing any lookups, and we're not referring to any cells. There's no function terminology. Instead, I'm saying that we have the number of miles contracted, which I just showed you where that's located. And I selected an operation here. I'm dividing that by the miles per gallon, which I'm then multiplying by a fuel cost per gallon. And then they had a modifier here, which I just stripped out. Okay? And that's how we get our $1,400 per period. Now, if I go and I toggle up my fuel cost from $3.50 to $4, go to my operating expenses, it's now $1,600. Okay? That's the example for, one example of a more complicated driver-based type of assumption. Now, there's no limit when you go into this to the number of assumptions you can stack up and to the number of different drivers. And yes, you can combine both non-financial statistics like those drivers and also go after financial information, headcount, whatever you need. But that is an example of how we approximate any formula. There's not a single formula we can't build in Budget Maestro, but we do it using native English language prompts as opposed to cells and functions and things like that. The advantages are, of course, number one, when you drill into this and figure out why is this $1,600, you can drill all the way down to figure out, okay, here's what we're going after, and then drill through to see these actual assumptions, okay, that are building it up. The second piece is if somebody's going in to look at your model, it's much easier for that person to figure out what the basis of that decision was. One more piece before we move out of operating expenses, and forgive me for spending the bulk of our time here today, but that's because everything I show you in operating expenses carries over to all the other aspects of the tool. We build it the same way. I'm going to filter on a particular department, or a particular, account number here. Let's go after telephone record, 6340. I can filter on any of these if I want to, any of these. I want to show you the ability to budget below the account level. Okay, here we have the exact same entity, administration, exact same account number, 6340, and it's a telephone expense. But in this case, I have cell phone and landline. Okay, these are being posted to the exact same time period, same account, same segmentation all the way across. Any other tool on the planet except for Excel would only allow you to define one payment method or one receivable method, if this was a revenue item, for items at this level of granularity. They would read this as $350 paid out in an average of 15 days, which would not be accurate for either end of the equation. Now, $350, 350 pounds is not going to make or break your year financially, but if it's $3,500 or $35,000, that can certainly impact your balance sheet and cash flow accuracy. Well, let me show you the debits and credits that I was talking about down below here. Okay, I'm going to bring this up to make it easier to see. Here on a cash basis, it's simple. We have the $150 as a monthly amount, and we have it debited from the P&L and credited to cash right away, okay, and paid out right away. If I change that from 30 days, from cash to 60 days, for example, we're building up, we're leaving it from the P&L, we're debiting from the P&L right away in the first period, second period, as it comes out, but it's hitting the balance sheet, it's credited to payables in that first period as it comes out, but it's not debited from payables and credited to cash until 60 days thereafter. Only Budget Maestro has this proprietary technology for building those debits and credits down at the future budget and transaction level, and the balance sheet and cash flow statements, as well as the P&L, are actually driven off these individual debits and credits. Now, if you don't care about this, if this is too much granularity for you, irrelevant. You can just drag it off the screen. You never have to see this. Okay, you can have this set to the bottom. But Budget Maestro is always doing that in the background for you. Another question people will have typically is, well, then do I have to assign a payment method or a receivable method at that level of granularity for every single item in the budget? Absolutely not. You're not doing that today, and you won't have to do that in our tool. What you will do, and what you can do, is set a default for a particular entity, department, location, user, whatever it may be, that everything in admin goes to 30 days by default, for example, and they won't even see this option. But if you do have any one-offs, or if you do have a need where there is some granularity, for example, every month you buy 1,000 widgets and you have a 30-day terms with that vendor, 1 month you agree to buy an additional 3,000, but you ask for special 90-day terms. That would be an example where you need to budget or forecast below the general ledger level, below that account level of accuracy, and where those automated debits and credits can really come into play, and you can drill down to that level of accuracy on our balance sheet and cash flow reports. So due to this technology, I hope you can see that you're going to get the same level of granularity and detail on a forecasted balance sheet and cash flow as you will on your actual balance sheet and cash flow, and that's really unique. So let's go back to our main screen here. I want to show you two quick things in income. Again, we're going to speed through the rest of these to respect your time, and also because it's exactly the same in every different module of the tool. Advanced in simple mode. Simple mode has that that graphical the screen up top for entering the data more like an Excel grid and for seeing last year's actuals. Advanced mode is more about the debits and credits down below. And two little things here I want to point out that are different from operating expenses. First, you don't have to budget just in dollars. We can budget units. We understand units times a rate, okay? And units can be anything. The second thing is level of granularity. If you want to budget at a high level or a very granular level for your forecast revenue, that's entirely possible. Let me give you an example. Here we have hardware, software, and services. These could be separate line items up top here. Or I could take my 2.4 million, spread evenly throughout the year, and apply a sales mix. Make a general assumption that about 50% of that is hardware, 30% software, 20% services. And in this case, I could even have a different receivable method or different discount rates for each. And we're mixing that detail all the way down to cash for the debits and credits. Okay, so it doesn't matter what level of granularity you budget at. It doesn't matter if you're using units times a rate or with any discount percentages. It doesn't matter what level of granularity you choose. We're still handling those debits and credits automatically. And again, if you don't really care about that detail to see it, you don't have to see it. Okay, it can go off to the bottom of the screen. You never have to worry about it again. But most folks really love that functionality. Personnel, again, simple mode, advanced mode. But if we're looking at the, what are the debits and credits and how does that come into play here? Well, Budget Maestro can handle all caps, all taxes, all benefit packages, anything you could possibly need. Here in the U.S., we have FICA, FUTA, SUTA are the common ones. That's your benefits packages with the state and with the government. In UK, we typically deal with pensions, and we even handle VAT tax if that's important to you. These are simple, just caps and calculations. All taxes and benefits across the world are pretty easy to maintain in Budget Maestro, and we have a certain module here for you to define those caps and to change your, if there's a waiting period for health insurance or something like that, or if you need to change elements to your pension, you want to test, some different pension plan availability, how that may affect your cash position. For example, if you roll out a different plan or make a modification, you can test that in Budget Maestro as well. But let's get back to a more simple level. The idea of budgeting for personnel usually comes down to the decision: are we budgeting by the individual or by the group, and have a multiple for headcount here. You can handle both in Budget Maestro. The other thing is salaried employees versus hourly employees. Again, we can handle both and handle a mix at the same time. The third thing I want to show you is our VP of Finance here record. We've noticed they're a salaried employee, but they have a mid-month start. Well, Budget Maestro has a built-in calendar, so we're smart enough to know that, our new VP of Finance, apparently she's, starting on the 12th. So Budget Maestro, even though it's a salaried employee, isn't going to pay her the entire full salary that she's due for that month, because it's smart enough to know, that she's not going to come in for the whole of it. We're also going to mix those debits and credits associated with those caps. And again, here we have our U.S. examples. These could be pension examples, and also any waiting periods for other additional benefits. And we're mixing all of those payment methods. We're defining where those are paid in our benefits section, or when those are paid, excuse me. And we're mixing all the way down to the individual debits and credits here, so you can see, employees are typically most expensive when they first start. They're less productive, and there's some additional costing to bringing folks on. And so when you're drilling into personnel assumptions, you can drill all the way down to cash, projected cash leaving to have to pay and compensate that employee or any employee-related expenses that you'll have. So if there's anything in particular you're interested in your personnel model, please reach out to ABS. We'll be happy to model your individual taxes or benefits and show you exactly how you would handle that in Budget Maestro. Let's go into capital assets. Again, you're going to get sick of me saying this: simple mode and advanced mode, debits and credits here in the advanced mode. Another thing just to keep in mind, just like you can budget for the individual and the group in personnel, you can budget for the individual and the group of assets. So a single asset or a group shared asset, and we can handle salvage percentages, depreciation methods of all types. In this case, I'm looking at some to-be-acquired laptops, and I put in an in-service date, and I defined over here that I was going to sell these items 9 months into the year, and I was going to take a loss on those items. Okay, we can load all of your existing depreciation from GP or anywhere you have it, even if you're tracking it in a third-party system or a spreadsheet, and then you can do your additional asset planning directly here in Budget Maestro. Usually when folks buy Budget Maestro, they tend to move all of their capital asset management into this solution because it's a pretty elegant solution that will then tie into all aspects of the budget. So let's go take a look at one wizard here before we get on to reports and analytics. We have our forecast wizard, our what if wizard, and our quick start wizard. And ABS can point you to different videos and assets that we have to describe each. But briefly, quick start allows you to build a baseline budget off of last year's actuals, dragging and dropping different departments, locations, entities, whatever it may be, product lines if that's appropriate, and marking up or down by certain percentages. Okay, if you just want to get a baseline, quick and dirty budget to get started and then fine-tune line by line, this is a fantastic tool. Give you a baseline budget in about 15 minutes for the whole organization. The forecast tool is where we mix budget and actuals together. Okay, it's this splicing budget and actuals and then making assumptions based off of those actuals that came in. We thought that we were going to do $1 million of this, or we thought we'd see 1,000 patients at this time, or we expected to get a grant of £500 for this, and we didn't. Okay, or we got something different. How do we mix those assumptions we made with the reality we had and then move forward? That's what the forecast engine is for. But then we have our what-if scenario engine. The reason why I'm preferring to show you this one is because it incorporates both elements of our forecast wizard and quick start all in one. So I'm going to call this ABS best case scenario. All right, because we're being rosy here, I'm going to do a high-level assumption and a low-level assumption in terms of granularity so you can see the power. So let's go to sales, and I'm going to mark up all sales revenue by 20%. Ooh, 200, that was a little ambitious. 20% on a particular date moving forward. Doesn't get much more high level than that. I'm taking all sales records across the organization. I'm assuming they're going to go up by 20% on a particular date. Maybe I'm magic. Now, a second assumption I'm going to make here, because we're being rosy, I'm going to go after some operating expenses, but I'm going to go after a certain account. I'm going to go after that telephone account, and I'm going to say not both of them, just the landline. I negotiated a new deal, and it's going to save us by 10%, okay, on a particular date moving forward. So what we did, again, super high-level assumption, super granular assumption. And you can stack up as many of these assumptions as you could possibly want. This is the Friday night, your boss tells you, oh, by the way, we need to make these changes before Monday's meeting, and you want to get out of there. You have evening plans for dinner and a show. You come in here, you fix this up and make those assumptions in 5 minutes. You got your pro forma financials and you're locked and loaded for Monday morning. And you don't have to worry about finding those pieces on an Excel spreadsheet and wrangling with it till you get the right answer. So I'm going to create a new budget version here, ABS best case budget, that I can then pick in my drop-down menu here, ABS best case scenario, and it's a fully functioning budget. Every other line item in my budget and forecast that I did not change, that were not affected by those assumptions, carried through. Okay, so it's a fully functioning budget model that I could then compare my original budget model to my best case model side by side in different reports and run a variance between them. Really a lot of value to that tool, and it's exceptionally popular. Let me show you the reports in Budget Maestro, and then we'll wrap up with a very brief look at Analytics Maestro. First, we'll go into financial operational reports. There's a number of preferences available here for naming conventions and columns and headers and footers and filters of all different types. I'm going to do a simple balance sheet across 12 periods. No, I don't. I understand there's no beginning balance here. It's just sample data. That's fine. These are what the reports look like in Budget Maestro. We don't pretend they're the sexiest reports on the planet. They are meant to be drill-through accurate down to that granular level of future journal entries, those debits and credits. So if I go to my fixed assets and accumulated depreciation, we talked about those laptops earlier, for example. Okay, and I'm drilling down to that level of granularity on these reports, which I can then dump to Excel if I wanted to and add any charts and graphs. I can also print these from here, export them to PDF, email them from here, whatever I like. Okay, but that's what these reports are all about: clean, accurate drill-down reports. So let me show you the same thing on cash flow, but just want to make sure that you guys are aware of the level of granularity we get here. Indirect and direct method of cash flow is both available to you here. In this case, I'm running a rare report where I'm comparing my projected cash flow to my actual cash flow for the same period. Let me pull off the periods and clean it up, make it an annual report. I'll add a dollar variance and a percentage variance. Ooh, guess we did well. And then I'm going to drill into my cash flows from investing, cash flows from operating expenses, adjustments, gain or loss. Here's a the loss from those laptops. Okay, and I have that projected right here, drilled down all the way to that level of granularity on these reports. Again, can be exported from here to wherever I like. Now, that's good enough for many folks, especially for the ad hoc reporting that you'll need for your budget and forecast. And if you like Management Reporter, if you like your FRX or any other reporting tool that you want that you have in place today, this is where the story ends, essentially. And you can dump the data using that same back-end ETL tool we have that takes data from GP. We can also write back to GP and dump that data back into GP's budget card, for example, where you can leverage those other tools. If you don't love those tools and you want some additional reporting flexibility and functionality, that's where our analytics tool comes into play. Now let me drag that over here for you. This is Analytics Maestro, okay? And this is our Excel graphical interface BI tool and dashboard reporting suite. It's designed to be super user-friendly. That's the idea of this solution. So instead of reinventing the wheel with pretty charts and graphs, we figured you guys already know how to build charts and graphs in Microsoft Excel, so we might as well leverage that technology. But the problems with Excel are those lookups, macros, formulas, and we wanted to eliminate those issues. So let me show you how we did that. First, you have this additional ribbon that's put in your Microsoft Excel, and that's what you're getting here. Second thing you want to notice is that we're pulling these data figures both from the plan basis, which is our budget, and our actuals in this case. Both of these are live numbers, okay? We're not, if you look up the formula bar for the earnings before taxes, okay, this would be 3-paragraph long formula for your budget or for your actuals if we were actually budgeting, or excuse me, from your budget, if we were budgeting this in Excel natively, okay? But we're actually not doing that. We're grabbing this data. This data is coming live from Budget Maestro. There's an underlying data cube, a SQL cube, the same exact technology that your GP has, and we're grabbing that data directly from there. Similarly, the actuals number is being held in GP, and we're grabbing it from there. Okay, so these are going to sit next to each other, and you cannot break these. I'll give you an example. You key over this, 55555. And now our reports are messed up, our numbers are messed up. If I refresh this sheet, it just grabbed the latest information again. I cannot break these reports even if I wanted to, as I showed you that. So what are we doing here? This is all the conditional formatting. These are the charts and graphs you already know how to make in Budget Maestro. But, again, you're leveraging Budget Maestro for slice and dice here too. If I want to drill into my entities and I get my corporate view, these are the same departments and locations that I had earlier in my tool. Okay, so that same lookup, this same piece right here, is flowing through one-to-one, and that's how I can slice and dice my reports. I can also double-click onto years. I can drill into any of these and see if I drilled into Americas or revenue and see the underlying detail. And that's not the only report you're getting. I mean, if I drill into, we have 8,000 users of this tool, so any number of different financial and non-financial reports you could possibly want to build, we can do so with Analytics Maestro. The idea is you can run an entire report book at once. Okay, every user can have a different report book and profile if they want. If you give the user security access, they'll be able to create their own reports on the fly, ad hoc reports. It's very easy to do. And the other benefit of this is, again, we're leveraging Excel for dissemination. So if you want to put these on SharePoint, okay, we're a big Microsoft house here. So if you want to put these on SharePoint, or if you want to tie them to a PowerPoint deck, you can simply refresh the deck, and just like it would grab the latest version of the Excel spreadsheet, that Excel spreadsheet is going to grab the latest information from Budget Maestro and from your actuals and GP. So your entire deck of reports, 10, 50, 200 reports, is going to come through in a click. And that's an exceptional benefit of the tool. You don't have to learn any SQL queries, any formula programming or functionality. It's simply leveraging all the data that's in Budget Maestro on these reports, and we have a number of different presentations that ABS can point you to for more information about this particular solution. So that's about it. You know, my time is about up here in today's presentation. I do want, of course, to call back to the screen and invite Matt back to wrap things up for us here. But you know, really, on behalf of Centage and Budget Maestro, we couldn't be more happy with our partnership with Advantage, and we certainly hope that you guys will ask them about the tool, and we look forward to hearing from you in the future.
That's brilliant, Michael. First of all, thank you very much. That was excellent. And I know how difficult it is to talk for 45 minutes without any sort of interaction, but you did immensely well. I have a couple of questions. Multi-company, in terms of Budget Maestro having a consolidated budget?
Yeah, absolutely. And so the benefit to that, if you remember the drag and drop kind of interface over there on the left-hand side, is you can run financials, both budget, forecast, and actual at any level of that granularity. So if you want to see company A only or company B only or consolidated, that's fine. The other thing is to the ability to drag and drop and combine those entities any way you see fit. If you've never been asked to before, and let's say you have 10 different corporate entities and you've never been asked before to show me these 3 against those 7, it's just a matter of dragging and dropping them to do that consolidation. So Budget Maestro handles all aspects to the consolidation, including multi-currency if those entities are in different currencies in different locations.
Okay, well, you just answered the next question. That was different currencies. That's well done.
Yep, no problem. One thing I'll mention on that piece, we can also test currency fluctuation. So that what if module I showed you before, where I took the high level example of all sales going up and the granular example of what happens if this simple telephone record goes down 10%. You could also go after the currency numbers in there. So what happens if I'm in pound sterling, but I have an American entity and a Canadian entity, and the American dollar took a dive, and I have all these millions of dollars worth of receivables out there. How's that going to affect their relative value, for example? You can test currency fluctuation and those types of things with a what-if scenario planner, and even hold historical currency in there. So really fantastic.
Final question, and I suspect this is possibly alluding to cost, which I'm not going to necessarily go into.
Sure.
Typical user size: small, medium, or enterprise solution?
Yeah, I would say we aim for the mid-market. So we mirror the ERPs that we integrate with. Doesn't mean we don't integrate with QuickBooks users or Oracle and SAP users, but we're a Microsoft partner, and to be fully clear, we are also a Sage partner. Our technology is Microsoft-driven, however, and those Dynamics tools, that GP, NAV, SL, and AX, is really the core market for us. So their core market mirrors our core market, meaning typically organizations in that mid, small to mid space, and we do have outliers, of course, that are Fortune 500 companies, and those are mostly the AX types. But we'll be happy to prove out for you any particular elements and scalability, and of course, we're not afraid to discuss pricing as well, and you can have a conversation with us or with ABS about that, and they can let you know kind of what you're looking at.
Okay, that's superb. That's excellent. Thank you for hosting the webinar. Thank you for attending the webinar. My details on the screen at the moment, but if you're an existing customer, you've got your own account manager. That will either be Paddy or Ellie. Please feel free to contact those guys directly. But thank you very much, Michael, and have a good day and have a good weekend.
Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, everybody. Thank you.